everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecheck, brought to you by the all-new Ram 1500 Sport. As always, I'm Andy McNamara, alongside Nick Alberga with that sweet Movember stash.
It's almost done.
Continues to run wild. I love it. And our picks are going to run wild too, brother. That's what we're going to do. We're going to give you sleeper picks, waiver wire pickups, players to avoid, get to the top storylines, and of course, tell you how to win some money in the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool, brought to you by Ram a little bit later on. But Nick, let's get to some of the big fantasy storylines. The impact, sometimes you don't think coaches have that big of an impact. Well, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mike Babcock leaving, big impact.
Yep, so certainly that was the big news this week. Sheldon Keefe replacing Mike Babcock, and right away, Tyson Barrie, the impact felt there. New voice behind the bench, 2 goals and 1 assist. I think important to note too, when you look at Tyson Barrie's utilization, playing with Morgan Rielly a lot now, 5-on-5, and in terms of the power play, the top unit, PP1 finally. I've been calling for this for a long, long time. This guy was a power play quarterback in Denver for quite a bit of time with the likes of McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. The list goes on and on. So I think the biggest impact felt here will be with Tyson Barrie and the buy low factor there. Frederik Andersen's another option, certainly in between the pipes. The wins are going to start to come here for this Maple Leafs team, and I think they're due to erupt. And outside of that, 14 different players, as you've mentioned to me off the air, have had Sheldon Keefe as a head coach, and I think that's pivotal. Familiarity effects. So a lot of options right now in terms of fantasy hockey when you look at the spectrum of Mike Babcock out and Sheldon Keefe in Toronto.
Funny what happens when you put people in positions to succeed, and we're seeing that very early with Sheldon Keefe. Also on the show today, we're going to get to our NHL quarter season biggest fantasy busts and surprises. Nick, what else do we look forward to in the fantasy news and notes?
Yeah, so jumping off that, I think you want to look at teams that could be next up. And again, we never like to endorse coaches who could be on the hot seat, but right now it's a legitimate fact that Calgary's struggling, Nashville's struggling, and New Jersey Devils are struggling. And almost to the day, or it was to the day, in fact, that Mike Yeo was out, Craig Berube came in. The Maple Leafs made the exact same change, hoping for that. Although I crunched the numbers in my 20 fantasy thoughts this week, and 7 teams made coaching changes in season last year. Only 1 made the Stanley Cup playoffs. You could probably guess which team that was because they went all the way in the St. Louis Blues. But I think when you look at Calgary, Nashville, and New Jersey, respectively, a lot of buy low guys right now. You look at certainly the Calgary Flames. I think juicy options right now in Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. I can't believe Calgary, one of the best scoring teams in hockey the last couple of years, has 7 goals in the last 7 games. That's going to change. The Nashville Predators, Philip Forsberg and Victor Arvidsson are 2 guys to target right now on your trade radar. And when you look at New Jersey across the board, Taylor Hall, contract year, he's really struggled to get going offensively. PK Subban, you have to think eventually Subban's going to get going offensively.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah, it's overdue. He's not even on PP1 right now. It's Sammy Vatanen's spot right now. I just like to take the risk sometimes, so I think there's some value to be had there. And Jack Hughes is another guy on New Jersey I'd go after.
Now, who's on your rookie radar? Because at this point in the year, we're approaching the end of the calendar year. Rookies have had 20-plus games under their belt, so they're starting to become more comfortable. When we can start tracking some trends when it comes to rookies.
That's right, and your boy Cale Makar leads the way right now.
Man, they call Cale.
You're going to talk about him momentarily right now. But certainly, I think 2 guys this week have caught my eye, in Morgan Frost, the former first rounder of the Philadelphia Flyers. Nothing cold about that kid, by the way.
No.
Playing on the top line with Claude Giroux and Travis Konechny. They put Frost at the middle and Giroux normally a center, although he's been intermixed the last couple of years, now on the wing. And plus PP1, centering PP1 is Morgan Frost. It's quite clear that Alain Vigneault is looking for offense, 10% ownership, dual eligibility with center and left wing. And the other one is a bit more of a risk because he has 0% owned right now in Yahoo standard leagues, and that's Klim Kostin. Pedigree's there, late first rounder a couple years back. With Sammy Blais on the shelf for at least the next 8 weeks for St. Louis, there is opportunity for somebody to come up.
And he's available.
Exactly.
100%.
As available as Nick Alberga. 0% center and left wing eligibility. And again, there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to St. Louis and trying to stick on that roster. They traded Robbie Fabry a couple weeks back and Klim Kostin. Granted, he's on the 4th line right now as a goal in 4 games so far in the NHL. I think he is worth the flyer right now.
One of the strategies that we preach here on the Fantasy Forecheck is taking advantage of teams on the 4-game weeks. Sometimes it's a little. This week, it's a lot. 16 teams have 4-game weeks, and that's relevant for DFS contests, for season long, really across the board. Who are a couple of those 4-game teams that you like?
The Montreal Canadiens have a 4-game week. Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Have a look at those guys, especially with Jonathan Drouin on the shelf. Somebody needs to step up in the top 6 there. And the Dallas Stars, slowly but surely, have been getting point after point after point.
Yeah.
One of the hottest teams right now, as we documented last week on the show. That continues. Corey Perry, 4% ownership. Dennis Gurianov still in the top 6, and that team is starting to get healthy as well. John Klingberg coming back. So is Rope Hintz. So across the board, there's a lot of value to be had right now in Dallas.
And only 1 2-game team. That's the Florida Panthers. So pretty much you're getting 3 or 4 all across the league this week. It's going to be a big fantasy week.
Yeah.
So Nick, let's go to our biggest fantasy busts of the first quarter of the NHL season. And I'm starting with Tyson Barrie. Now, remember, I said the first quarter of the season. That came just before the Mike Babcock change. You had Tyson Barrie. Nick, he was ranked 338th. That's like just 1 spot above Nick Alberga on your defensive pairing, okay? 338, 0 goals. He was a -10. He was out of place. He had no confidence. He wasn't getting the top power play time under Mike Babcock. Flip the switch, go to Sheldon Keefe, dude has 3 points in 2 games. So I think the drought, he's not going to go point a game pace, but it looks like at least his confidence is back. But certainly as a bust for the first quarter of the season, if you bought low on Tyson Barrie, you're going to be pretty happy going forward.
Yeah, you're right. And again, it stems to the Babcock firing and Sheldon Keefe coming in. It could do a lot for a player. You overlook that sometimes, and certainly I think the buy low factor is still there with Tyson Barrie, but that window is closing quickly, especially with his deployment, I should say, on PP1 with John Tavares, the big boys, Austin Matthews, Nylander, the list goes on, Morgan Riley. They're going with 2 defensemen right now.
Let the young Colt run. Let him run free.
Exactly. I like that a lot. I'm going to go with Johnny Gaudreau to stem off my Calgary conversation because he's a guy who is firmly inside my top 25 and has played nothing like that. So that's pretty simple. And then to piggyback off my comments, PK Subban's a guy who many were wondering if would get over 50 points this year. I wonder if he gets to 40 at this point in time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
My other bust is Phil Kessel. Phil the Thrill no more. He had a 69 fantasy ranking to start the year. He's over 230th now. He's on pace for the fewest goals since his rookie season. Yeah. Like, Nick, there's just nothing going. It seems like maybe Father Time is starting to catch up. He's over 30. It's just not working at this point. That's got to be a top fantasy bust for somebody who, if he's not scoring goals, he contributes pretty much nothing else across the board.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like he's been cruising. I think it's fair in both scenarios. When you look at Tyson Barrie, when you look at Phil Kessel, old faces and new places kind of per se, and it takes a player sometimes a while to get accustomed to the new surroundings. So he's with Rick Tocchet. I think still trying to find his identity a bit in the desert in Glendale. So I'm going to give Kessel the benefit of the doubt going forward and see what he can bring. 4 goals, 10 assists so far in this early season. But I like the value of trying to buy low on him. In terms of surprises, I got a couple to throw your way. Producer Drew's going to love this. Andrei Skorakovsky, I call him.
There you go.
Andrei Burakovsky. You talk about Colorado. That team has not taken a step back with all the big-time injuries, especially in their top line with Landeskog and Rantanen out right now. I like what Burakovsky's bringing to the table. Jacob Vrana in Washington, ironically enough, with Burakovsky leaving Washington, Vrana's really stepped up. Darcy Kemper maybe is the best fantasy goalie going right now, and I don't know if he was drafted in most leagues. And then Ryan Strome, what he's doing at his age, granted how big his resume is at the NHL level, pretty impressive to me.
My surprise is Cale Makar. It's so nice, I'm going to say it twice. I'm going to say it twice. Cale Makar. And the reason is, it's not because we didn't expect big things out of him. He's a 4th overall pick, right? So you expect him to be good. But rookie defenseman, for what he's been able to do, he had 169 fantasy ranking to start. He's now top 5 in fantasy defenseman, top 20 player overall. Like, what he's been able to do for Colorado is sensational. And the sky seems to be the limit. I don't think we're going to be seeing any rookie wall. He is playing over 20 minutes a night. Like, there is no ease you into the show. It's all go for Cale Makar.
He's on pace, quite honestly, to smash a lot of rookie milestones. And it's really, really difficult to win a Calder Trophy as a defenseman. I think, I put the numbers together the last couple weeks on my Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Thoughts, 20 Thoughts. Just how difficult it is. I believe 4 defensemen have won the award in the last 30 years. And on top of that, I mean, he could hit numbers that we haven't seen from a rookie defenseman in a long, long time. He's crushing it. It goes a long way what McKinnon is doing right now, but also to that point is Cale Makar at the ripe age of 21. What he's producing, all facets of the game is unbelievable right now.
Let us know your biggest fantasy busts and surprises for the first quarter of the season on Twitter at AndyMC81, at TheGoldenMuzzy, and you can leave your comments in the section below here as well on YouTube.com/Sportsnet. Let's get to our waiver wire pickups for the week. And I'm going to start Jared McCann for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby out, like we talked about. Hey, so you look internal first. Who's going to pick up the slack? Now, his overall numbers are not going to blow you away, but it's those secondary categories as well. He's owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues. And over the past 11 games, he has produced. He's got 5 goals, 10 points, and a plus 11 since October 29. So again, not blow you away numbers, but as a nice mid-tier play for DFS contest and a depth ad, I like it.
Yeah, not wrong with that, and certainly a team that's ravaged by injury now in the Pittsburgh Penguins. You can't go wrong, and I actually have a Pittsburgh defenseman coming up. But first and foremost, we'll look up the middle, and Anthony Beauvillier. The Islanders' makeshift second line has been on fire in general. That team 15-1-1 in the last 17 games. Finally lost in regulation on Saturday night after having not lost in regulation since October 11th, if you can believe it. Anthony Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, my client, I like to call him.
My client.
A little Paul Heyman there. And Derek Brassard as well. That line's been on fire. You look at Beauvillier's body of work last 5 games, 6 goals, 2 assists, and the ownership is just 19% right now in Yahoo.
That's amazing. How about on the blue line? Who do you got?
I'm going to go to John, don't call me Dan Marino of the NFL. 1% ownership, and I just say that because Justin Schultz is now out to complement the fact that Chris Letang's out of that Pittsburgh lineup, so somebody needs to step up. There are a variety of options you can look in Pittsburgh. Marcus Peterson is certainly a name that you can look at. But I'm going to go to John Marino. His last couple games, he's been producing a goal and 3 assists, 4 points, plus 6, 7 shots on goal. And Brian Dumoulin's another guy you can look at too.
In between the pipes, I'm going to look at Jonathan Quick. And fantasy sports is a what have you done for me lately business. So if you look at Jonathan Quick's numbers overall, they're disgusting. They're gross. You're not going to like it. 3.55 goals against, 833 save percentage. So if you just look at that, I'm not touching Jonathan Quick. Well, maybe you should. Saturday ended a personal 4-game winning streak for him. Double-digit fantasy point run in 6 of his last 7. And the Kings are one of those 4-game teams this week, 2 of which are against the struggling San Jose Sharks. And because of that ugly stat line, Quick is perfect for contrarian DFS points.
Yeah, I'm all over Jonathan Quick right now. I talked about him in my 20 fantasy thoughts. So last Sunday, his November numbers have been spectacular. Back to quick form. Granted, smaller sample size. I believe it's about 7 games now. He's 5-2-0, something like that. So he's really getting things in line and actually being a respectable fantasy hockey goalie. So he's a guy we wouldn't endorse dropping right now. And on top of that, I would go with UC Saros of the Nashville Predators. I know the easy selection in Nashville is Pekka, but he's really, really struggled. You look at Saros, he's appeared in 7 of the last 9 games and very attainable right now, just 10% ownership and a 4-game week upcoming for the Nashville Predators. So you start to wonder, like Pekka is getting to that age. I know he's still firmly the number 1, at least in my opinion. But at some point in time, UC Saros will grab that job. And maybe that clock is starting to tick a bit. And Nashville, one of those teams we mentioned, sort of on the hot seat right now, underachieving type start. I think UC Saros is a guy who could be primed to steal that number 1 gig there.
All right, Nick, it's our favorite time of the week. It's how to earn some money and some prizes on the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool, brought to you by Ram. And folks, this show, the Fantasy Forecheck, is brought to you by the Canadian exclusive Ram 1500 Sport. This full-size pickup gives Canadians exceptional capability under the hood, advanced technology inside, and impeccable styling throughout. It's the Ram 1500 Sport, and it's designed for life in the North. So here's how you play if you haven't already. You go to fantasy.sportsnet.ca. You have 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies that you pick from. You have 30 points overall to spend, and the value is 1 to 4. And within that, for each position group, you slap a Ram-capable tag on 1 each. And on those players, you double the points. So you can set your lineup there, but who is your forward Ram-capable pick?
I'm going to go simple here, and I think Tampa's starting to catch fire just a tad. I know he's been banged up a bit, but I'm going Nikita Kucherov. I know he's a 4-point value, but there's a reason why he won the Hart Trophy last year. So pretty simple with me. We mentioned the fact that there are 16 different teams with 4-game weeks, among them the Tampa Bay Lightning, and not the only Tampa player I'll Ram-capable pick this week.
Jean-Gabriel Pageau of the Ottawa Senators. 1, he's been red hot. But 2, the value in this contest. So like I said, it's a 1 to 4 point value to spend 4 points or 30 points overall. He's 1 point.
Yeah.
He is 1 point. He's been one of the hottest players in the whole league. So I can still play him, put the Ram capable tag on him, and if I want, still get myself a Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin. I can still go for the big dogs while having one of the best fantasy players in the first quarter of the season.
Absolute value. You're totally right there. I'm going to stick in Ottawa for my defense pick and Ram capable pick Thomas Chabot. He's been, up and down so far, signs the big contract. It's understandable. I think you forget how young this kid is. In the last couple games, he's really started to get things going. I think from a standard league perspective too, I'd buy low right now on a Thomas Chabot. When he's the most efficient and effective, he is one of the top point producing young defensemen in this game, only 2 in terms of value as well. So I like Chabot.
Yeah, I'll go back to my guy, Cale Makar for the Avalanche. And it goes to, 1, he's just producing at an outlandish pace. So you slap the capable tag on him. He's a 2 value. So again, if you can Ram capable tag a 1 in Pageau, a 2 in Makar, you have so much extra room to go and get yourself some of the big name guys. But look at what he's done. Since November 7th, 4 games of over 20 fantasy points, 7 goals, 18 assists, and a nice-looking schedule too. So you can always go and pick your John Carlson and all that. And I'm not going to blame you. You can still get John Carlson and get the Makar value.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, and certainly we're taking different approaches and strategy, which I like this week.
Yeah.
Like I think you want to maximize value in terms of the Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool. Last but not least, in between the pipes, I'm going to go with Andrei Vasilevskiy. I talked about Kucherov.
Yep.
I mean, people are sitting there saying, well, yeah, no kidding, you're going to go with Vasilevskiy. But he has struggled so far. It's important to stress that. But I think a guy of that ilk will find his game eventually. A 4-game week for Tampa. I think they want to get in a bit of a roll. They got a lot of games in hand on many teams. So they're playing a bit of catch-up. But Tampa's really not a team I worry about. I know Stamkos dinged up. I know Kucherov a little banged up right now. But I think that team is about to get rolling. So I'm going to go with Andrei Vasilevskiy. Who do you got?
Been a nice start to the season for the Carolina Hurricanes, so I'm putting my Ram capable tag on Peter Mrazek.
Nice.
And when you look at him, he's starting Sunday night in season leagues, in DFS. He's got a solid stat line. The appealing schedule is what stands out to me, though. Look at this. Red Wings, Rangers, Preds, and Lightning. Tag him, get those double points.
I like it. I like it very much.
And that'll do it for the Fantasy Forecheck brought to you by Ram. If you got any fantasy hockey questions, leave them in the comment section below or hit us up on Twitter at AndyMC81.
At the Golden Muzzy.
We'll see you next week.
Take care.